Congratulations, it's week 11. We're almost done. But before we are, I'm going to shoot just a couple more videos. And the first video for week 11 here is going to be the article, Is Radical Individualism Destroying Our Moral Compass? Sounds a bit stodgy, but it actually has some very intelligent, insightful critiques about where we're at today. Also, this article is very useful for connecting the dots to other articles. So I highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with it because it'll touch on Berkowitz, it'll touch on Frank, it'll touch on Oldenquist. Good stuff. Basically, individual rights are very good. We are lucky to have come across them, and they are ultimately the best way for society to operate such that individuals can exercise freedom to the extent they don't interfere with other people exercising their own freedoms. Simple. Generally agreed upon. But it's not sufficient that we just focus on individuals being able to follow their own desires and goals and not interfering with other goals. There are, as there always have been, or at least in past generations, past philosophies, responsibilities, duties, things that you are obligated to do and concern yourself with so that we can maintain to have the individual rights to do the things we want to do. Rights and responsibilities, not just rights. The problem that he states in this, I suppose it could be a she, I don't really know who the author is. The author indicates that losing out on the idea or the importance of responsibilities and duties is detrimental to our society, and goes on to obviously critique radical individualism, a theme running throughout the class, and also challenges concepts of relativism and ultimately postmodernism, though none of our authors use those terms exactly, but that is exactly what they're talking about. And I'll read you two paragraphs which I think should sum up the primary argument being made. The focus on rights motivated a suite of social movements. Civil rights, women's rights, the rights of disabled persons, gay and lesbian rights, so forth. All these different little groups, subsets of society that didn't have a political voice. And through the democratization that has taken place, and we can talk about that in hyperdemocracy, many people have gained voices. Many groups have gained political voices. Good things, right? Because we want people to live and make decisions and be free and just don't step on other people's freedoms. We're all going to be happy that way. However, something not so good seems to have happened on the way to claiming our rights. It concerns what Jonathan Haidt, called the great narrowing of moral frameworks. Over our history, the range of issues that we would call moral has narrowed considerably, where moral principles of liberty, rights were traditionally accompanied by the values of public virtue, character, duty, community, and care. Contemporary moral discourse tends to privilege individual rights as our primary rights, and this directly can be linked back to Oldenquist. He was saying the very same thing. You have these things that make up citizenship skills, but without the moral compass aspect and the responsibilities and the duties, those same skills can be used for egoists and revolutionaries and criminals. Those are just ways of moving through society effectively, but they don't benefit society. Right? You can use those things they're just tools. And tools, can be used for good or ill. And so both authors at this point are making the argument that we have some amount of responsibility and duty to use those tools in a certain way. Right. The great narrowing has come at a cost. As rights have been extended to increasingly diverse social groups, we have come to appreciate the diversity of ways of being that are possible in the world. And we can easily look at this, and I often deride the identity politics and the intersectional identity politics movements, because I think there are some serious issues with them, but they're not entirely wrong, because it is true to some extent that, you have men, and men have a perspective on the world, and women have a perspective on the world because we have different experiences and different body parts, different hormones and things. We're different on a fundamental level. But not only that, Hispanics and Asians and blacks could have, but don't automatically have, but could have different perspectives based on the experiences they might have had. And so, and an intersectional aspect is not only am I white, but I am a male, and I am the intersection of being white and being male and being a husband and being a son and being a brother and being a teacher, and right, all these things make up me, the individual. And so we do have this diverse array of views on how to be, and because the democratization of media and speech has grown to the extent that it has, there are just an infinite number of ways of approaching and viewing the world, which I have said before when I discussed or mentioned postmodernism. As a result, it becomes increasingly difficult to identify any single system of shared values and beliefs. Very true, and problematic to the extent that we want to run and organize a society. Is it okay that people have all these different perspectives on society? Yeah, it's fine, of course. We're all entitled to our own opinions. But when shared values and beliefs don't coincide, and we're trying to organize society in a way that seems reasonable and fair for everyone, we run into problems. Religious people versus the LGBT movement of people. We have gay marriage is now federal law. People disagreed with that. Too bad. Story's over. But there are other movements within the non-binary and trans community and claims they make that come up against other people's claims about, for example, I have the right to be called by a term of my choosing. But someone over here says, well, you can ask to be called whatever you like, but you don't get to dictate my speech. Right? So there's a disconnect there. And maybe it's not a big one, but it's one. Liberalism's solution to this problem has been to call for tolerance and respect for diverging viewpoints. We've heard this our entire lives. However, while tolerance and respect acknowledge the limits of any single claim to moral certainty, they fail. They fail as a way of reconciling moral conflict. And we all kind of know this, because tolerance doesn't fix the problem. Tolerance encourages us to live with the conflict. And sometimes that's okay, but sometimes it's not okay. And you have to have a discussion, right, a la Adler, about which things are permissible to disagree upon and which things are not permissible to disagree upon because they're not opinions. For example, the treatment of women and minorities as different from some other aspect of the majority. If women have different rules for their existence in society than men, if a minority group has different rules for its existence in society than a majority, that is objectively unfair and unjust by any author's definition, from King to Adler to Jefferson to Madison. All of our authors see those behaviors as being inherently unfair and unjust. So we know there are some absolutes in this world. And now we're getting back to, well, not only we're talking about relativism and absolutism, but we're talking about Adler, which is there are some facts about the way to live a life. And maybe allowing everybody equal rights, that's one truth. Maybe there aren't very many. And so there is no disagreement. There is no opinion. You don't get to have a different opinion about people having equal rights. I'm not going to go any further. There's enough pontification there. I hope you get the gist of the article. I hope that what I've explained to you has been useful. I will stop here, and I will continue on. We have 2 more articles to go.